Okay, I'm here to talk about my first week in college, which was in Crystal Speak. Fantastic. Actually, I loved everything about college. When I was in high school and making plans to go to college, my high school guidance counselor told my parents that I shouldn't go to college because I wasn't smart enough and I wouldn't make it in college. Well, obviously that wasn't true, and I certainly didn't feel that way. So when I got there, I was like in heaven. I thought this was like the best thing that had ever happened to me, and I certainly thought that I belonged there. I didn't really care for high school, so college was amazing. And um, the story that I want to tell about college is that I went away to college, so I lived in a dormitory. So I drove up there with a friend of mine, and my parents came separately and brought all my stuff. And I got there, and I was living in my residence hall for about 2 months, and I had noticed that the upperclassmen on my floor would come down occasionally, like every other day or so, and talk to me and how I was doing, blah blah blah. And I never really thought about it. Actually, I thought this was great. I thought I had like built-in friends. And about 2 months into my college, my first year in college, my resident assistant, my RA, came down to my room and she sat down and she's like, "How you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing great," which I was, by the way. I was having a great time. And she said, "I want to tell you something." She said, "That first day that you showed up here, and your parents got here before you, and your mother came up to me and pulled me aside and sat me down and told me that you were going to really have a hard time in college and that she was very worried about you and that she didn't think you were going to make it and that I should call her if anything happened and that, they'd come and get you." And she said to me, she said, "You are the most well adjusted resident I have on the floor." And I thought that was pretty much typical of the way people thought about me back then. I was always very kind of quiet and pretty shy, and I didn't say a lot, although I did very well in school. But it's kind of interesting that my high school guidance counselor didn't think I could make it, and my parents, God bless them, and they loved me dearly. They were just worried. They were very concerned that I wasn't going to make it either because it was my first time away from home. And I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I loved college. I loved the whole thing about standing in line and trying to get classes and trying to figure out schedules. I loved getting up, and I was in the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. I loved getting up in the dead of winter and traipsing down the hill from my residence hall to my classes. I loved trying to find my classes, and of course, I am from Wisconsin, so I loved the drinking. And we'd go down to Water Street every Friday, Saturday night and get drunk. And it was pretty far away. And then dead of winter, and you'd stumble back to your residence hall because we were too cheap to take cabs. And actually, we really didn't even have cabs. There was no choice. You had to stumble back. And surprisingly, none of us ever froze to death. Uh, but I love college. I want every student who comes into college to feel the way that I felt about it. That I had thought that this was by far the best thing that had ever happened to me, and I wanted to be there. I loved my 4 years there. After my first year, I stayed. I didn't go home anymore. I took summer classes. I went year round. I think I graduated with more units than I needed just because I wanted to be in class. Even in the summer, I got up, I took early morning classes. Well, of course, one summer I took relaxation at like 8 o'clock in the morning, which, I mean, that's kind of a joke. You just kind of roll out of bed and go lie on the floor and relax. But everything about it was great to me. I spent 2 years in residence halls, and then I spent 2 years living off campus. And I would say probably one of the hardest days of my life was when I had to graduate and go get a job. Aside from that, I hope every student could just walk into a college and feel the way I felt and feel so much a part of and like, this is it. This is where I belong.